Every year, the grass at the All England club gets cut to exactly 8 millimeters. The white clothing rule gets enforced at exactly the standard it always has been. The strawberries get served. The queue forms before dawn, and the tennis world arrives expecting to already know more or less what's going to happen. The favourites get through. The upsets occur at the margins. The order reasserts itself. That's the rhythm of Wimbledon, and it has held more or less for over a century. But every so often something arrives that the rhythm can't absorb. Something that doesn't fit the existing categories. Something that makes people stop what they're doing and pay attention in a different way than they usually do. In the weeks before Wimbledon 2026, that something had a name. And one of the best tennis players alive, a two-time champion of this very tournament, had decided to say it out loud. Carlos Alcaraz was not at Wimbledon this year. A wrist injury had ended that possibility before the grass season fully got underway, which was its own kind of story. The defending champion watched from the outside while the tournament he had won twice carried on without him. He could have gone quiet. He could have focused on rehabilitation and let the event pass without his commentary. That would have been the understated choice. Instead, he reportedly made a prediction that traveled through the tennis world faster than almost anything else said during that fortnight match. Alex, he said, was going to shock the world at Wimbledon. Nobody, he reportedly added, was ready for what she was about to do. The tennis world sat with that for a moment because when a two-time Wimbledon champion who has competed at the absolute summit of a sport says something like that about a 21-year-old, you pay attention. Not out of politeness, out of the recognition that this is a man who knows what winning on grass actually requires, who has done it himself on the biggest stage, and who is now looking at someone else and seeing it in her too. This is the story of that prediction, of what it meant, of where it came from and of the player it was made about. But to understand why Alcaraz's words landed the way they did, you have to understand who Alex was at the moment he said them and how she got there. Because the path was not the one anyone had predicted for her when she first appeared on the professional tour's radar. She is from Quezon City in the Philippines. She left home at 13 to train at the Rafael Nadal Academy in Spain, which is its own sentence worth sitting with for a moment. 13 years old, a different continent, a different language in the streets, a different climate, a different culture, and a different version of daily life from everything she had grown up inside. She went there because the dream required it and because the support around her, her family, her early coaches, the people who had seen something in her before the results existed to confirm it, had decided the dream was worth the sacrifice. The years that followed were the invisible years, the ones that don't generate headlines or social media content. The grinding construction of a professional tennis game from the ground up in an environment designed specifically for that purpose. The Rafa Nadal Academy is not a comfortable place in the sense of being easy. Is comfortable in the sense of being exactly what it says it is, a place built around the discipline and the detail and the daily repetition that turns a talented teenager into someone who can compete at the highest level of the sport. Alex spent years inside that structure, building the game that would eventually carry her onto the biggest courts in the world. The results came slowly at first, and then they came fast. In January 2025, she was sitting around 140 in the world rankings. By March 2026, she had reached 29. That climb through the densest and most competitive band of the WTA rankings happened through consistency. Not a single explosive hot streak that inflated her record before reality corrected it. Consistent results across surfaces and conditions and opponents of different styles, each one adding a brick to something that was becoming undeniably solid. Dubai quarterfinal, Indian Wells round of 16, Miami round of 16. All on hard court, the surface everyone had decided was her best. And then came the grass, and everything the tennis world thought it knew about where she fit on the surface spectrum got complicated in ways that were genuinely thrilling to watch unfold. Birmingham was the opening statement. She arrived as the top seed at a WTA 125 event, which carries its own pressure because being the seed everyone expects to win is a different kind of burden from being the underdog everyone expects to lose. She handled it. She went through the week dropping exactly one set. And that set came in the final against a player who pushed her to a deciding third before Alex closed it out with the kind of controlled aggression that tells you someone has been in tense situations before and knows what to do when the nerves are real. She won the title. Her first professional championship on grass. The surface, she wasn't supposed to be defined by the surface. Alcaraz had won Wimbledon twice, which perhaps explains why he was watching what she was doing in England with particular attention. Then she went to Berlin, a WTA 500 event, with a meaningfully stronger field but no guarantee of anything past the first round. She arrived as a wild card, which is the tennis equivalent of walking into a room where nobody is waiting for you specifically, where your name isn't on the shortlist and where the expectation is that you make a respectable exit in the early rounds and pick up some ranking points for the effort. She beat Elena Rybakina in the round of 16. The world number 2, the 2022 Wimbledon champion. A player whose serve is among the heaviest weapons in women's tennis, whose ball speed off the ground creates problems that most opponents can't solve because the margin for error on the return is almost non-existent. Alex solved it. She returned flat and early and kept the ball at a height that compressed Rybakina's strike zone and gave her nothing to work with. Rybakina hit 41 unforced errors in that match. And a portion of those errors had everything to do with the discomfort Alex was creating rather than Rybakina simply having a bad day. Then came Jasmine Paolini in the quarterfinals. World number 8, a player with the kind of defensive quality that tends to neutralize exactly the style Alex plays, absorbing pace and redirecting it patiently until the opponent makes a mistake. Alex went up 3-love in the opening set and never gave Paolini room to implement the plan. 63-64 in under 90 minutes. 2 top 10 wins in a single tournament week as a wild card at a WTA 500 event on a surface she supposedly wasn't meant to dominate after Berlin. She said something that stuck. She said she thought she was getting better, that she hoped she was getting better, that being exposed to this quality of opponent more regularly pushed her to find things in her game she didn't know were there. That's a specific and honest way to describe what was happening. She wasn't claiming she had arrived. She was claiming she was still arriving. And the distinction matters because it tells you something about how her mind was working about the gap between where she was and where she understood she was going. Alcaraz, watching all of this from the sidelines with his wrist in whatever recovery protocol his medical team had prescribed, was not someone who needed the results explained to him. He plays at the level where you understand immediately what beating Rybakina and Paolini back-to-back means, because those are players he has competed against himself at the highest level, and he knows exactly how good you have to be to win those matches, especially on grass, especially in the same week. The connection between Alcaraz and Alex is not incidental. She has spoken about him as one of the players she most admires and has placed him in the category of athletes whose work ethic and competitive mindset she looks to as a model for her own development. She mentioned once that playing mixed doubles with him would be one of the experiences she'd love to have, which is the kind of thing you say about someone you genuinely respect rather than someone you're strategically name-dropping for interview purposes. Alcaraz, for his part, had been paying attention to her trajectory for longer than most people in the broader public had. He had noted back in 2022, when she was still a junior player with a recently won Grand Slam junior title, that she had the level to do great things in the professional game. That observation came before the rankings confirmed it, before the grass title existed, before Berlin, before any of the headline moments that made her name genuinely global. He saw it early, and then years later he said it publicly in a way that carried the full weight of his reputation and his experience. She was going to shock the world at Wimbledon. Nobody was ready. Those words went through the tennis community. The way things travel when they're specific and credible and come from a source that has earned a right to make that kind of claim. It wasn't hyperbole from a fan account or a media outlet looking for engagement. It was a 2-time Wimbledon champion saying that a 21-year-old from the Philippines had the game, the mentality, and the support system to do something at the sport's most prestigious tournament that the sports establishment wasn't prepared for. Think about what Alcaraz was actually saying underneath the headline of the prediction. He was saying she was fearless, that she went onto a court and played her game without the kind of defensive hesitation that grips a lot of young players in big moments. That contraction of ambition that happens when the occasion feels larger than the player. He was saying her game translated to the grass in ways that weren't obvious from the outside but were undeniable once you watched her closely, that she moved intelligently, read the court with tactical clarity and made the fast low-bouncing surface work in her favor rather than against her. He was also pointing at something beyond the tennis. He was acknowledging the phenomenon that had been building around her since Melbourne earlier in the year, when the queues outside her court 6 match had been so massive and so unexpected that the Australian Open scheduling team had been publicly criticized by former champions for failing to anticipate them. He had seen what the numbers looked like. Her pre-tournament press conference at the Australian Open had drawn 171,000 online viewers. Alcaraz's own press conference had drawn 29,000. The figures weren't comparable. She was generating a level of public interest that didn't map onto her ranking or her results history and seemed to be driven by something outside the normal parameters of professional tennis fandom. A diaspora of millions of people scattered across the globe, all of whom had been waiting their entire lives for someone from their country to reach this level of the sport. Finding that person in a 21-year-old with a flat backhand and a left-handed serve and smile that cameras seemed to find naturally. Alcaraz called her a movement. He said she was inspiring a generation. He said the tennis world was about to feel the full force of what she had become. And at Wimbledon, where she arrived as the 29th seed, the first Filipino ever seated at a Grand Slam, those words had specific and immediate application. Her draw was not gentle. First round against Renata Zurzuar, a 28-year-old Mexican veteran who had beaten Alex before, who knew exactly where the vulnerabilities in her game sat and had proven she was willing and able to exploit them over 3 sets when the conditions were right. That match was never going to be easy regardless of the ranking gap. And anyone watching who knew the history of their previous meeting in Cary, North Carolina, understood that Zurzuar entering the match with experience and a specific tactical blueprint was a genuine concern. Then if Alex got through, the potential second-round matchup was with Serena Williams, who had accepted a wild card back into singles competition at 44 years old, marking her first singles Grand Slam appearance in nearly 4 years. Then if she got through that, the possibility of facing the defending champion in the third round, it was the kind of draw that could have been designed specifically to test every claim that had been made about her resilience and her belief and her readiness for the largest moments the sport could produce. Alcaraz knew what that path looked like, and he still said she was going to shock the world. The weight of that prediction sits differently when you understand its source. This wasn't someone who throws words around casually or makes bold public statements for the sake of generating attention. Alcaraz competes at a level where credibility is the most valuable currency you have, and spending it on an endorsement of someone who doesn't deliver costs you something real. He understood that when he said it anyway. The larger context of the Wimbledon grass season adds another layer. She had gone 9-2 on grass in 2026 before the tournament began. 9 wins, 2 losses on a surface that was supposed to be peripheral to her strengths. She had a title from Birmingham. She had a WTA 500 semi-final from Berlin. She had beaten 2 of the best players in the world on the surface in a single week. And she had done all of it with a quiet consistency that didn't feel like a hot streak destined to correct itself. It felt like someone who had figured something out, who had discovered that the physics of grass, the low bounce, the pace, and the skid made her game more dangerous rather than less. Alcaraz understood that intuitively because he had won on grass twice and knew exactly how the surface rewarded certain things. The ability to hit clean and flat and early. The capacity to redirect before the opponent had time to reset. The patience to construct points without needing the rally to develop. Length before you could take control. Alex had all those things. She had them in a form that was only becoming more refined as the grass season progressed. As the matches got bigger and the opponents got better, she kept finding the same level rather than shrinking from it. Here is something worth saying about what it means for a 21-year-old to have the backing of someone like Alcaraz in a public and specific way. Professional tennis can be a surprisingly insular world in terms of the recognition that travels between players. They acknowledge each other in the way that competitors in any field acknowledge people they've shared a court with. But the kind of genuine public endorsement that Alcaraz was offering is rarer and carries different weight than a polite post-match compliment. He was not on the tour that week. He had no immediate competitive stake in whether Alex did well or badly at Wimbledon. He was speaking purely from the position of someone who had watched her carefully and arrived at a conclusion that he felt confident enough to put his name beside. That's a meaningful thing, and the tennis world understood it as such. The conversation that followed his reported comments moved through the analyst community and the broadcast community and the fan community in ways that predictions usually don't unless they come with real credibility attached. People who might have been inclined to slightly discount the narrative around Alex, who might have privately wondered whether some of the hype was outpacing the results, now had to reckon with the fact that a player who had won this tournament twice, who knew exactly what Wimbledon required, had looked at her and said she was ready. The commercial dimension of what Alex had become was also part of what Alcaraz was recognizing, even if it wasn't the central point of his comments. She had driven a 48% increase in ticket sales at the Dubai tournament. She had sold out or significantly boosted attendance at multiple events across the year. She had made the Forbes 30 Under 30 Asia list. She had become the highest-earning Filipino tennis player in the sport's history. The ecosystem around her had grown into something that had no real precedent in women's tennis in terms of its geographic spread and its demographic composition. Millions of people in Southeast Asia and in Filipino communities across every continent were following her matches in real time, planning their schedules around her draws, and booking flights to the tournaments where she was entered. That phenomenon was inseparable from tennis because it was the tennis that had produced it, the wins and the performances and the historical firsts that gave it something real to attach to. Alcaraz calling her a movement was not a commercial observation. It was sporting observation. He was saying that what had gathered around her represented a genuine expansion of